This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining me. We've got a lot to get to as Hayden Howerton joins the podcast because we've got to break down what was an epic battle for the Iron Skillet as SMU takes it 66-42 in Ford Stadium. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, we got to remind you guys, we are presented by our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team today because we're on the cusp of hitting that road game stretch for SMU, plus the SMU basketball schedule is out. So when do you want to get out to some of those premier matchups in ACC play? Well, you can now start your planning process now and use code PONYUPACC for a discount on a round-trip flight. You can bring your kids, your family, coworkers, pets. That's what private jet life gets you. So reach out to StatusJet today. We had some folks on the Pony Express book their flights with StatusJet just this week. So appreciate them for doing that. They're going to get to see how it is on that private jet life. So code PONYUPACC gets you a discount on a round trip flight today. And now we're pleased to be joined once again by former SMU offensive lineman Hayden Howerton, feeling very, very good. Very good. Bunch of fresh breakfast made up in an Iron Skillet this morning, I bet. Hayden, what's this week taste like for you after the Mustangs dominated the Horned Frogs?
Man, I'll tell you what, after you win, the sun shines brighter, the food tastes better, and not being a player anymore, the 24-hour rule doesn't apply to me anymore. This win truly is the gift that keeps on giving. I have a TCU coworker. We made eye contact Monday morning, and he just was like, I don't think I'm a fan of the Frogs anymore. And feeling that in my heart has made me so happy all week. So definitely some of the most proud I've been in as an alum. You pair that with the fact that, Billy, you and I attended the SMU Hall of Fame dinner on Friday night. And a quick congratulations to the class of 2024 SMU Hall of Fame inductees. You had volleyball's Avery Acker, men's basketball Nick Moore, tennis John Ross, and then a pair of coaches. You had men's track coach Dave Woolman, and then the late, great men's swim coach Eddie Sinnott. And that was an emotional night for all the nominees, and they're all very well deserving to be inducted. But man, what a weekend, dude. Come up Saturday, the stadium was absolutely rocking. Record student attendance. The stadium pulse meter was full on Saturday. The boulevard was popping. It was a little warm, but it was a beautiful, clear day. I loved the apron and then the oven mitt giveaway for the Iron Skillet and then the Dallas jerseys to top it all off. They were all ingredients, no pun intended, for an unbelievable day paired with the result of the game, which is a huge win for the program. Super happy for Rhett finally breaking through and getting his first power opponent win. I know he talks about how that wasn't really on its mind, but that has to be something that has weighed on him. And it's all the better that this first win was against TCU and against his old boss. Super happy for the team. Super great week already so far. And we got another big one coming up, but we'll break down the game first.
Yeah, you look at your keys to the game. I mean, they really checked all the boxes for the most part. And I think you look at that atmosphere and really in the past, you've seen moments where SMU had these big moments and opportunities to do something great. And, even on like a national 7 p.m., kind of like what happened with BYU, and they fell flat. But against TCU, they absolutely brought it. And I'll be honest with you, when they tweeted out that CW thing, I kind of was like, that kind of shocked me because TCU has won the last 2 years before this year. And, had control since Sonny was over there. But it just seemed like a total lack of respect. And I wonder if you would see that as a player, would that jazz you up a little bit more? I know Rhett wants to play passionately, not emotionally. But when something like that happens, that's bait right there.
Certainly some disrespect, man. TCU wants to talk about the fact that we're little brother, they don't believe that it's a real rivalry. And then they go out and do some stuff like that where it's like, all right, if you're trying to get us ready to play, well, now you've got us ready to play. And my key to the game, so the 3 ones we'll talk about: run the ball. Absolutely. Thought we did an awesome job with that. Big shout out to the offensive line and Garen Justice. The second thing, we had to shut down their run game and then limit the pass game. I gave us a half for that one. We definitely shut down the run game. They passed for a lot of yards, but there was a lot of window dressing, a lot of garbage time offense for them. TCU looked super tight in this game, which leads to my third key. Don't make this rivalry bigger than it is. Play loose. SMU did a much better job of that than TCU. I think the pressure was on TCU and Sonny Dykes and all of that crew coming to SMU, knowing that it's going to be the last time for the Iron Skillet. And man, they came out tight. The pressure looked on them from the moment we won the toss. We took the ball, we went down, got 3. Defense came up huge. It was 10-0 like that. TCU had a ton of penalties that were dumb. They had too many men in the backfield. They had roughing the quarterback, catch interference. It was just a total lack of focus for the Horned Frogs. And really that starts with the head coach. I mean, this is the elephant in the room. Everyone knows I love Sonny, but his ejection, let's talk about that for a second. Sonny is always super intense with the referees. He's always getting in their ear, and it's because he wants to win, but he turns into a completely different animal on game day. He's very quiet. He's very reserved during the week. He's pretty chill. And then on game day, he just flips a switch and becomes a little bit of a psycho. And he typically pushes the line with the officials, and he always rides that line before Kaz Kazadi, the strength coach, pulls him back. And he crossed the line, obviously, and kept giving him the business, and he paid the price for it and got thrown out of the game, which Frogs were without their leader in the second half, and it completely fell apart for them.
And I'll add that this was a Big 12 crew. So it was it's not going to be good, at some point down the line in this season when he maybe needs a call to go his way, and he ripped him. And there's been some things being said about what was actually said, and it's definitely crossed the line if it's true. So we'll leave it at that. But for SMU fans, it just made it that much sweeter. And I think for me, the tone was set with this offense getting the ball and being able to move down the field. You get 3, but I know I don't want to make a bigger point of it than it is because they just came out and executed, but it's the first time all year that SMU didn't have a pick or a 3 and out on its opening possession. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they played with a lot of confidence from there.
Kevin is the kind of guy that we knew was going to be able to get this offense rolling, and we knew he had to get this offense rolling early. And so when we drove down the field, we got points early. I turned to the people around me, my wife, my parents, and I was just like, man, that was the first time all year we've gotten points. We're leading this ball game in the first quarter, which was huge. It kind of gave us a breath of fresh air, a little relief, if you will, that we can play from ahead a little bit versus going down 7-0. And all right, now we got to get out of what we had initially planned for our first 15 plays just to try to match the scoring of the opponents. So talk about KJ. He was super efficient this game, 14 for 19, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. So he didn't have a ton of production through the air, but man, what a leader on Saturday for this offense. It was super exciting to see him just really carry himself and this offense to the performance that they had. He also added 10 carries for 41 yards. He did have a fumble, which unfortunately I probably saw coming with how he's been carrying the ball so far this year. Rhett got onto him, but it's a great learning experience for him. It didn't end up biting us like it could have in other games, and he was able to bounce back. He's got a lot of poise. He plays just like his quarterback coach, De'Aaron King, which I know him all the way back from high school in 2013. It was our first matchup against each other. De'Aaron and we worked out for the Texans on the same day, played against him in high school and in college when he was at University of Houston. And so he has a great mentor in his room, really leading him there.
Yeah, I think you got to give De'Aaron King a lot of credit for getting Kevin ready to go. And I know Kevin, I talked to him this week for media and just kind of his approach, and he's just like, a little bit more film, but Kevin's Kevin. I mean, he was signing autographs after the game, which is extra sweet when SMU's not, sweating it out. I was down there on the field with about a minute to go, and the final plays were being run by SMU's offense. Kevin's over there signing autographs. I don't know if Rhett knew about that or not, but I mean, it just, you could tell it meant a lot to him, and it means a lot too. And so for Kevin, he's pretty good at being, straight down the middle. I mean, he is not high, he's not low, and this week will be, a big challenge. It is turning the page to the biggest game in SMU kind of history, in a sense, modern history. That was a big win right there. First win over TCU at home in 19 years. But your first game against an ACC foe is against, preseason top 10, but the champion of the league is coming to your city. And this is going to be his biggest challenge, because even after that AAC championship win, he had the time away with that bowl game coming. So I trust in Kevin, though, to be, very, very level-headed when it comes to approaching this game too.
Yeah, Kevin has the whole city behind him, man. The pride of South Oak Cliff. Got to talk with his family before the game, which they're amazing people. Had a great time with them in the indoor. Was really happy to see our passing game come together. That was something that we had challenged our receiving core to really step it up coming up in the next few weeks. And the corner comeback route touchdown on the third down to Jordan Hudson, that was huge. I was so happy to see that. That really kind of ignited some of our passing game. And we had efficiency paired with good run game. So I would rather have that with the performance we just had, where Kevin doesn't throw for over 200, paired with an awesome ground game, than 400 yards passing, and we can't run the ball worth a damn. So just ask TCU how that works out. I still want to see the wide receivers continue to develop, and KJ will continue to get experience and go through his progressions. So that's something I want to see, and it'll help him eventually start to throw for more yards and put up those big numbers like every quarterback wants to. But overall, super pleased in the improvements in him and our receiver group for this week. And man, I got to talk about it. I'm also super pumped with how physical the offense was. They committed to the run. They ran 42 times, 238 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. That offensive line dominated on Saturday. I'm super proud of the big fellas and Garen Justice. No sacks allowed on top of that. And I just want to say, I told you guys. I told y'all to let Garen Justice cook, and he allowed this unit to gel. He mixed it up, and I think he finally found the best 5, which from left to right goes Savion, Logan, Ja'Kai, J.O., and PJ. And then in reserve, you have Ben Sparks and Andrew Champley, which when we're able to roll those 7 guys out there and have a lot of success, even when Ja'Kai and J.O. went down for a few plays and J.O. goes to center, Sparks goes to right guard, and our first play was a 25-yard Brashard Smith rushing touchdown. So I think really we're able to roll any of that combination of 7 out there now. I think we've kind of found our core group, and we're able to take some pride in what we do.
And kudos to TCU too. They didn't try to load the box either and try to force SMU out of this, run heavy approach, which, we talked about it. That was what the doctor ordered for SMU. They have run the ball well enough all year to get to the point where you can declare going into a game, we're going to run the ball, try and stop us. And I'm so happy for the entire offense that they were able to do that, but also that, the coaching staff walked in there and, going back into that bye week and clearly, challenged them and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to run the ball and we're going to make them stop us. And they couldn't. And that is a great blueprint for what the rest of this season could look like offensively. I said this, in the post-game pod. I think this is not the SMU of old. Rhett said it last year after the Memphis game, but for SMU fans that are maybe having to reprogram themselves now, there was kind of the expectations that maybe the offense would be this high-flying, crazy, 40 points a game type of offense. But with the changes, it's ground and pound, it's control the clock, it's play as mistake-free as you can. And they're also going to grind you down and get those opportunities to make a big play like a Brashard Smith, to roll out and hit Jordan Hudson, to have Romello Brinson go for a 51-yard gain. Those things are there for this offense because of the tweaks that they've made kind of across the board, and a lot of guys stepping up too.
It truly is an across-the-board thing. I want to give a quick shout-out to the receiver group and Rob Likens for emphasizing our perimeter blocking. There were some runs that were really sprung by receivers getting a hat on a hat, and, man, we end up one-on-one with the corner. which is some of the worst tacklers on defense, which that's a win for the offense. Your safeties are your great tacklers. Your corners are just more of your cover guys. But Brashard Smith, again, we talk about him every week. He just keeps getting better, man. ACC running back of the week. Super happy to see that for him. Congratulations, Brashard. We're going to need another big performance out of him this weekend. But defense wins championships, man. So let's talk about when TCU had the ball. Defense continues to come up huge for us. Scott Simons for president. He's completely transformed how this team plays football. This defense is flying around, man. Their edge, wall, swarm to the ball on every play, and they're playing with so much passion. It is so fun to watch. And what set the tone was that huge 4th and 1 stop on TCU's first series, and everybody's going crazy for the stop, and the ball pops out, and Crosley scoops it up, and we take it back to the house, and it was pandemonium at that point, man. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I'm happy for Crosley. He really bounced back after the whole Spitgate and then the BYU punt miscue. That was a huge play from him that we really needed.
Yeah, that was massive. And Crosley, I was talking about him on another podcast with our On 3 FSU site, and I said, Brandon Crosley is a starting corner. He is good for some really competitive, good plays out there. And like you said, the scoop and score was massive. That was such a Brandon Crosley play. I mean, that in terms of what it means for him to do that to him, I mean, I could only imagine some of the noise he was talking a little bit later in that game. But, he's also had some of those moments where I thought the flag on him, down near the end zone that allowed TCU's drive to actually keep going, one of their touchdown drives. I thought that was a little rough by the officials. Not saying I would have gone Sonny Dykes on them, but Big 12 officials. But that was really, I think, like you said, the thing that set the tone, and they were able to, kind of feed off of that. And I felt like the defense had mental errors here and there in the secondary, whether it be biting on kind of double moves or, the miscommunication down in the south end zone where they didn't have a play in. But when it was about kind of matching up with your guys, and when you were there and in position, they made plays all night. Like the secondary, I mean, Scott Simons, like you said, Ricky Hundley, they take a lot of pride in that secondary being right. I think they'll at least correct the mental mistakes this week going into FSU.
Yeah, overall, they're on the right guys, which is a huge step in the right direction, man. When I was playing, it seems like we had 5 busted coverages a game. You can't win that way. And so really the only one that I think you referred to was the 4th and short, where TCU, I think, just had a great play call. It was 4th and inches. They're down 14-21. Hoover rode the fake for a really long time, and Eric McAllister was just wide open because we kind of bid on the run. We were really committing to stop the run, and he just got behind us. So 1-0 them. That was a great play on them, but it's also a good learning experience for next time to allow the guys up front to do their job, and then once you know for sure that the back or whoever has the ball, then you fit.
Can we talk about one of my favorite additions in the late editions of his signing class? I mean, Ahmad Moses. I mean, I don't think, and I don't know, I kind of want to pump it up, but I don't know how they would feel about it, at SMU. But I mean, you mentioned it, the eye black.
This is a family-friendly show, so we can't say what was written on the eye black, but it was not suitable for work about the Horned Frogs.
It was not a Bible verse. Let's just say that.
But that's the passion that comes with this rivalry, man. Everyone feels that way, regardless if you've been there a year or if you've been there your whole career. So he's a guy that grew up in Mansfield. He went to Mansfield Summit, and so he's been right in the middle of this rivalry. He literally lives pretty equal distance to both universities. So he's a guy that picking SMU, obviously he knew what the rivalry meant and what it was all about, and super happy for him to come up big with 2 interceptions, one of which returning for a touchdown.
Yeah, huge plays. Again, he was honored by the ACC as well. And then I feel like we can devote a whole podcast to talking about, SMU football had a good tweet about the stadium, and they said something to the effect of, how can you not feel romantic about this game? The plays that Elijah Roberts has made the last 2 games, it's kind of the same way. I feel a little romantic about it.
Man, I've gotten goosebumps thinking about this game and how the stadium was. I've been a little bit emotional, to be completely upfront, just because this is what I imagined when I signed with SMU in 2017. This is what I was hoping for. This is what I was banking on, thinking we could build into. And to finally see it come to fruition in a game like that, it makes me so happy as an alum. But Elijah Roberts, I'm so happy for him. He finally got home. His first sack of the year. He manhandled that right tackle. So it was the only sack of the ball game. So there was only one combined between the two teams, but it was a huge one. It was a strip sack, returned to the 1 yard line, and led to SMU getting 7 points. And he did a great job of realizing that the right tackle had all of his weight on his outside leg. He hit him with that power move to his inside pec and really just threw him out the club. And he had nobody around him to go and murder Hoover, get the ball out, and that was an awesome play. Super happy for him.
Yeah, allowed Brashard Smith. I mean, they probably given Jafari a little grief, which I thought he was in, but got to be a little bit of grief given in that defensive room, just a bit. I mean, Brashard punches it in on the next play, but just again a massive play, and a microcosm of what SMU was able to do all day to Josh Hoover.
Hoover had 0 turnovers on the year, and then he turns around and has 4 on Saturday against us. I mean, he is a guy that has taken care of the football all year long, and our defense was just forcing takeaway after takeaway. There was a guy behind me that's like, I think we're out of champagne and club takeaway, which, man, when we can get after teams like that and win the turnover battle in that dominant of a fashion, play great defense and run the ball, Billy, I don't think there's a team in this conference that can beat us. If we can play that way every week, we'll be playing in Charlotte to win a championship.
That's the crazy thing about this game we call college football is you can look at a BYU loss and think, as a fan, everything's going wrong. Oh my God, I can't score in the red zone. Oh, this, that. And then they turn around and they deliver, a huge historic win. And that changes your entire perception of, one, what can happen. And, one day for SMU, it'll be what should happen too. And
For
so
sure.
it's going to be quite the journey. We're going to try to keep it, on one game at a time, an old mantra. But as we sit in our current roles, it's pretty cool to look ahead a little bit too.
No doubt. I mean, I've been sent the Sopranos line. Last week you said it was over. This week you say we're back. What changed? That's really how we're feeling right now.
Yep. The Godfather one. Just when I'm out, they pull me back in. That's the sport these days. I tell you what, SMU's defense. I think people look at that scoreboard and maybe are like, "Oh man, what happened? Like, what's going on?" I mean, I disagree. I mean, I think they got some situations that they love to have back, but that it was almost a showing that didn't really reflect how SMU has played all year. But at the same time, it was still very much good enough to win.
For sure. The score doesn't even indicate how much of a blowout this game was. I mean, yes, defense gave up 42 points, and that does not look like a good showing. But TCU threw a flea flicker touchdown. They scored 2 garbage time touchdowns. I mean, you take those away, you give up 21 points to a pretty good offense. I mean, let's be for real on how this team has been rolling. Talking, of course, about TCU. I thought they had played well on offense up until this point, and maybe they're in the building, patting themselves on the back, blaming defense, but they got their ass kicked in all 3 assets of the game.
Yeah, including special teams. Colin Rogers continues to be a beast. I mean, set the tone with that big field goal to kick things off. And I mean, he missed one, but I talked to Colin on Sunday. He was cramping and just kind of going through that. He also had to kick 7 extra points. It was a little hot. I mean, kickers, they're kickers for a reason, but sometimes it sneaks up on them, that heat and all of that too.
Yeah, while you're hitting inside run in practice, those guys are over there doing yoga and telling jokes. They're not used to this, having to play 20 snaps a game. But special teams is one of our superpowers right now. 7 for 7 extra points, 3 out of 4 field goals for Colin Rogers, who is 11 on the season, which is the most in the country. Huge punt return touchdown by Roderick Daniels Jr. to bust the game wide open at 17-0. Should have had another kick return touchdown from Brashard in the stadium and on the TV copy. It looked like a sliver of green was there. We don't have the view of the trailing official, who's the one who blew it dead. And I want to give a shout out to Rhett keeping his composure on that one being called back. It was 24-21 at that point. Very easily could have blown his top, and it could have been a different ballgame if we get a penalty on top of that. Now, the one negative, there were a couple of kickoffs out of bounds, and I understand Colin Rogers was amped. Kickers are like golfers. The more relaxed, the better you are. But I loved him getting in the TCU guy's face after the first field goal. That fired me up. And he has so much respect from his teammates for what he's done so far. And then he's different from all the other kickers I've seen, man. He is a guy that shows some passion and some emotion, and I'm all here for it. I love to see it.
I've gotten to know Colin a little bit better over the last couple of years. They've either made him available a couple of times, or he's kind of been standing there in practice every now and again, and he's chatted. I mean, he is, kind of, quirky. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he is like an absolute joker just by some of the things that he does now on the field. And you saw that, with him getting in the TCU player's face. And look, I mean, when you kind of set the tone, I think kickers can set the tone for special teams. I mean, I really do. And even more so than punters. I think if you have a weapon like that as a kicker, just really helps your teams overall, and it gives you guys the confidence to go out there and execute, and you get rewarded with things like Roderick Daniels making a house call on TCU.
When we're on the 40-yard line and we're like, all right, we're in field goal range, and you pretty much have no doubt he's going to go out there and make it, that's insane. That's insane. Most college teams are feeling iffy on the 25 with college kickers, and he's going out and showing so far that he looks like a guy who could be a kicker in the National Football League for a long time.
All right. MVP of the week?
Man, let's just go back over the rules because there are so many guys who deserve it. So it is offense and defensive line only. I reserve it for the guys that don't get as much credit as everybody else. So if I have to give it to a single player, I'm going to give it to Elijah Roberts. Great inside power move, big strip sack, leader of our defense, really has come up big where we've needed him, led to 7 points for SMU. Super happy for him. But overall, I'm going to give it to Garen Justice and the entire offensive line room. They bounced back after all the criticism. Everybody was hearing it, but they don't listen to the noise in that room. Garen Justice is not able to be rattled. He just trusts the process. These guys went back to work. He challenged them over the bye, I'm sure, but they were able to get going and do what they do best. So where do we go from here? I think all we have to do is follow the formula for preparation of this past game. You don't need to overemphasize the logo you're playing against. Rhett said it. TCU's logo wasn't in the building one time this past week. And I think that's been the difference of not playing their fight song during practice, not making guys so overamped of, oh my God, we're playing TCU or Florida State. It truly is a nameless, faceless opponent. Yes, you're going to watch film of the team and you're going to see it through that way. You're still going to get your preparation in, but it doesn't matter if it's Houston Christian or Florida State. You still have to prepare the same. And really, it has to be a complete game for us to win in the way that we have. All phases have to play in harmony, which is really, as long as we're able to do that, we're going to lead to a lot of wins coming this season.
I don't know if anybody had a bigger win than you did though over a couple of people.
I did. So I saw some purple on the boulevard from some people I wasn't expecting. My former teammate Alon Ali had all of his TCU gear on, and I just want to say I saw it on the boulevard. I saw you in your purple. You're dripped out, and I hope it looked just as cool on the car ride home when all the TCU fans left at halftime.
Oh man, see, this is where we want to have a little bit of fun. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes it doesn't have to be that serious, but it could be serious when we're talking about the battle for the Iron Skillet. And
Battle for the Iron Skillet. Guy I played with for 5 years acts like he never went to SMU. That pisses me off.
It should. I mean, I don't understand how you do it, but whatever. So everybody's different.
We're getting my blood boiling, and this is a happy podcast.
This is a happy podcast, and that's why the coffee on Monday morning for you also tasted good in the office.
Yes, sir. That's right.
All right. Coast to coast we go. It's time to jump into that. But before we do, got to remind you guys that we are also presented by our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. Reach out to AKM Turf and Greens today. You can see, look at that, Hayden. That is grade A backyard right there. You got a 3-hole setup there to work on your putting. And then you get into the rest of the backyard. and they've got you decked out for the perfect backyard to entertain. You can have some tables out here. You can grill. You can throw a little picnic. Everything runs up right to the trees. It's all edged off the right way. Grade A work from our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. So remake the backyard into a place of your dreams. Reach out to them. info@akmturfandgreens.com today. Get $500 off your project and turn your backyard into a weedy, patchy mess into that perfect backyard oasis. Code Pony Up for $500 off your project. Reach out to them, our friends at AKM Turf and Greens.
Looks sweet. So much less maintenance than real grass.
Yeah, I know, right? One day that'll be my whole backyard. One big old backyard of putting greens, and I don't know, maybe a whole fake chipping area and everything.
With all that free time you got, right?
Yeah, all the free time I've got, especially during football season. It's just a total mail it in.
Yes,
Speaking of mailing it in, the OU offense continues to struggle, and Josh Heupel, after getting fired from Oklahoma's offensive coordinator when he worked for Bob Stoops, he returns for the first time, won a national championship there. All my OU buddies went up for the game. They came away very disappointed.
Volunteers win 25-15, lower scoring game than I think most expected. As you said, this Oklahoma offense is really struggling. They aren't able to find their rhythm. They still are missing some guys due to injuries, so I'm hoping for their sake they can get some of those guys back and really be able to pick it up. But for now, 4 weeks in, 77th scoring offense in the nation, not something you anticipated from an Oklahoma offense. We've seen them be crazy explosive in the past few years, and that's just not it right now. TCU is going to have to fight the Giants, though, this year. They're going to have to play Alabama and Georgia for a chance to play for an SEC title later this year, and they're going to play both of them in the regular season. So we'll see. We'll probably get a rematch of that if they continue to win the way they are. But that's where Tennessee Volunteers are heading. Top 5 team in the country now. So they keep rolling.
Yeah, Nico Iamaleava is a stellar. He was on three's number 1 overall prospect in the country when he came out. Big time pickup for the Vols and is now paying off. Again, I think for OU, they almost, it seems like, face some of the issues that not SMU really did with Preston at quarterback, but they went and inserted Michael Hawkins in there. He can run around a little bit more. And, I mean, that's what they're going to go with this week when they play against Auburn. So, and first start for Michael Hawkins, Jordan-Hare Stadium. Weird things happen on the Plains. So good luck to him. Again, a local guy as well. But OU is in a really tough situation. I mean, they've had a lot of changes from Jeff Lebby leaving, Seth Luttrell. I will say some North Texas fans are probably just feeling very validated the way Seth Luttrell's offense looks in Norman. So we'll see how the rest of their year goes.
Unsurprised.
Yeah, firsthand experience right there for y'all.
Yes, sir.
All right. Speaking of a game that was just wild in a sense, I was watching on Twitter, and I'm not sure exactly what time this game was, but I remember seeing Michigan fans heading for the exits. Oh, is this what it's going to look like for the new era? Michigan can't do this. Michigan's getting gashed by Lincoln Riley. And Michigan was able to come away with a 27-24 win.
Welcome to the Big Ten, USC. Lincoln Riley's finesse offense, they met Big Ten smash mouth football. Michigan rushed for 290 yards on 46 attempts. That's how you wear down a team. You win the time of possession battle. And this was a back and forth game. Michigan had to punch it in on a 2-yard rushing touchdown with 37 seconds left. Michigan is another team that has had quarterback controversy until this week. Alex Orji was able to win his first start as Michigan quarterback. Wolverines hold on to win 27-24. And I probably misjudged the Wolverines a little early. If they can keep this formula and they can continue to run the rock the way that they have, then they could be a team that comes back and could be a Big Ten contender. I'm not saying they're going to be, but they showed some flash this weekend.
Well, Alex Orji, Saxy quarterback product. So quite the journey he's had as well. But yeah, that one really kind of surprised me, the way Michigan was able to come back in a sense and retake control of that game and win it. I mean, that just doesn't seem like their MO. They're going to get out ahead of you and grind you down and do all of those things. And kind of similar to, what BYU was able to do in a sense against SMU, just the way they can really mash you a little bit. And they just crushed Kansas State, which also now in a quarterback controversy, it seems, as well. So SMU fans, you guys are coming out on the lucky end of it appears, because everybody else around the country is dealing with quarterback issues in a way.
That was the talk on the way out of the stadium. People were like, have you seen the BYU score? I mean, they were kicking their ass. Provo, Utah is a very dangerous place to play. Some crazy stuff happens out in Provo. Parker Kingston, early nominee for Play of the Year, ran 140 yards on a 90-yard punt return. It looked like he was running the 200-meter. So he was running around the corner. He got the edge and took it for a score. It was a muffed punt that went behind him about 20 yards. Looked like it was going to be a disaster, but that's why you don't give up on the play. BYU makes SMU look better the more that they win. K-State was predicted to win the Big 12 by some, and they go out and get embarrassed in Utah. BYU might be for real. We'll have to see. The holy war against Utah is going to be a hell of a game later this year.
Yeah, I think my picks were Utah and Kansas State. I don't really know if anybody wants to win the Big 12 from what it seems like. But no, there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of parity in that league, I think. It wouldn't shock me if there was like a 2-loss Big 12 champion, but I have a lot of trust in Utah, and now I've got a lot of trust in BYU the way they're rolling.
No doubt. So we'll go ahead and come back to this next one. Keep on talking about Utah. Number 12, Utah traveled to number 14, Oklahoma State. Utes take care of business in Stillwater. They win 22-19. They moved to 1-0 in Big 12 play. First game in the Big 12. They beat another team that by some looked like they were going to be poised to win the Big 12. It was 22-3, 6 minutes left in the game. OK State made it look better with a pair of late touchdowns. Ollie Gordon, one who looked like a Doak Walker Award preseason favorite after a monster 2023 campaign. He was only limited to 42 yards rushing. He only has 258 on the year. Pokes are struggling to get the ground game going. They have a veteran offensive line group, obviously a veteran running back, and you just haven't seen that from them yet. We'll see if Oklahoma State's able to bounce back, but Utah looks for real.
Yeah, didn't get to watch that game, but very surprising on Ollie Gordon. I mean, that's one where, I know he had the little run-in with the law, but man, didn't think it would impact him on the field like that so far this season. But yeah, Utah, they're so steady as a program. I really got a ton of respect for what they do out there.
You have a 7th-year quarterback. You're going to have some stability back there.
Yeah, Cam Rising's my age. It's where do you want to go from here? You want to touch on SMU's next opponent after Florida State, or do you want to touch on one of the favorite discussions of this podcast in conference realignment?
We'll talk quickly about Louisville. Louisville remains unbeaten, 31-19 W versus Georgia Tech. They only ran 46 plays offensively, but their quarterback, Tyler Show, is very efficient, 13 for 19, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's really going to be what we looked at as far as Kevin Jennings goes this past weekend. And other quarterbacks around the ACC are proving that you can win that way. First real test this weekend, they'll travel to South Bend, Indiana to face Notre Dame as they face SMU the following week. And then now what we've all been waiting for, unfortunately, some more conference realignment.
This is just so juicy. The whole Pac-12 trying to poach the Mountain West. I saw a lawsuit today. I will say for my health, I try to stay out of conference realignment unless it's involving the ACC at this point. But this is literally coast to coast with what the Pac-12 is trying to do to get itself back at the table. But the main takeaway is, and then you can dive into what they've done. The main takeaway is that the college football playoff does not want to add a 6th automatic qualifier conference back into the fold. So even if the Pac-12 does this, it's going to be a watered down conference. They're not going to get back to where they were with a seat at the table, but they are going to be at least in better shape than being the Pac-2.
For sure. Pac-12 thinking about adding Utah State and officially announced it yesterday, starting in the 2026 season. Mountain West and Pac-12 are now only at 7 football members apiece. You need 8 to be recognized by the NCAA as an official conference. Gonzaga is in talks to join the Big 12, the Pac-12 as a non-football member, but there's nothing official yet. And then Memphis, Tulane, and USF all received offers to join the Pac-12 on Monday. the American Conference got commitments from those three, as well as the entire conference, about how they're going to try and rebuild the American Conference. But unfortunately, man, it's been gutted as of late. The departure of UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and SMU has unfortunately severely weakened the conference. Frankly, I kind of feel bad for a couple of those teams and those fan bases. I think Memphis should have gotten an invite around the same time at SMU, but pays to have the donors we have and get enough money to get you in a far superior conference than the American now. I mean, unfortunately, when I was playing, you would get a Cincinnati UCF, and that would be a gigantic game. Now, I mean, we're getting North Texas Temple, for a spot in the, top 5, which it's just a weak conference now. And I hate to see it, as it is what I played in during my entire college career. But times are changing. I said it when I was in college. I really think the end game for all of this is there's going to be 5 super conferences, about 20 teams apiece. Everybody else is going to go down to FCS.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I look at a program like Tulane that's won a lot lately. I know they're a super small school. They've got a small stadium, even, kind of compared to SMU's, like just a program that has had a very proud run. And in terms of earning your way, I mean, if football is all that matters in a sense, they've done about everything they can. They've beaten USC. They've, should have beaten Ole Miss last year. I mean, they really have done just about everything they can. And I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about this. And Memphis has been financially just in ruins overall. I mean, I don't even think they can do anything to the Liberty Bowl without the city. And so it's a really tough situation for some of these schools. But, as much as people want to, complain about how long it took SMU to get to this point, they did. And their leadership is moving them to that next higher level that you want them to, not only just getting to the ACC, but doing it at a high level and the commitment to winning at a high level.
Unfortunately, it's disrespectful to your fan base putting out a committed graphic, when obviously your teams are ready for the next step, but you're being held hostage by a conference that is crumbling, unfortunately. So I hate to see it. I think the Liberty Bowl is actually a very cool stadium. I don't have great memories there and was never able to get a win there, but that stadium was loud every time we went. The fans are very passionate there. They serve lots of hard liquor there, so maybe that contributes a bit to it. But if football really is all that matters, Memphis, Tulane, USF, I think, is on the rise too. They've played Alabama close the last 2 years, so we'll see what they look like this year. But I think all 3 of those teams could have and should have gotten out of that conference this week.
Yeah, really tough situation. I mean, compared to the travel versus, sticking around and seeing what's next with the AAC, tough line to walk. I mean, I do know that the travel expenses are just so much to do that for those schools in particular. I mean, you look at USF and where they'd have to go week in, week out, and the extra hotel nights and the this, the that. And USF's not poor. They're building an on-campus stadium. They just showed the plans, and they're similar to almost what, like, they fell off. UCF got on, and UCF's in the Big 12 because of it. USF, when I was in high school, was number 2 in the country. I mean, they played Pat White in West Virginia, and it was big time in Rutgers, and what a different world that was in the Big East. But that was where they were headed, and it's just a timing thing, and it's crazy. But they've got the juice out of probably everybody in the American to make it to that next level. Maybe UTSA, the way they're kind of trending, their stadium is not great, but that's not what matters. What matters is good coaching and a little bit of NIL at this point, and a decent TV market. So I'm intrigued to see how the AAC does from here on out.
As am I. But let's get to mailbag. So I put out post on our On3 message boards. So if you guys want to be included, feel like you're a part of the pod, shoot me some questions. Every Monday, I'll bump the thread there, see if we can get some new exciting questions for the week.
Yeah, I am pulling it up now, and I'll tell you what, it's a lot more fun after a win over TCU to get these podcast questions answered, because, man, there was, and I like the fact that you keep it in the same thread, because you can just kind of see the progression of the season for the mailbag, which I think is kind of underrated. But all right, let's jump in. Our friend Stangs 2019. What was the biggest difference you saw that contributed to the offensive line's drastic improvement?
Like we talked about so far this season, man, they just needed time to be able to gel. And Garen Justice, want to give a big shout out to him, like I already have, and I love him. I'm super happy he's our offensive line coach. He's not afraid to experiment with this group and really throw some guys in some positions that, maybe they don't have a lot of experience in, but if they're one of our best 5, then we need them out there. So I think it was just a combination of no mental busts, guys being able to gel and really understand how all the combos work with each other, and then just having that dog mentality on Saturday, man. They came off the rock with an energy I haven't seen so far this year, and they were dogging some dudes, which I think that's something that can't be taught. That's something that the group either has or it doesn't. And one of my favorite players to watch, he wears my number, Ben Sparks, he emphasizes that big time. I love watching him. He's one of my good friends. That's not a secret. But he really emphasizes what I want that group to be about.
Yeah, shout out Ben. We've been high on him for a long, long time. Thought he'd even as there's been veterans and things like that around him. I mean, he's really steady. So shout out to that whole offensive line. And Stangs 2019 continues. I'll let you expand on your points last week. ... Why did TCU's offensive line suck?
So I received a text message last week from AJ Ricker, my previous offensive line coach, and he was not happy with some of the things I've said about Garen Justice, how I think Garen Justice is the best offensive line coach I've been around. So I'm not going to dive too deep into why TCU's offensive line sucks right now. All I'm going to say is I'm so glad we have Garen Justice, but I don't think TCU is committed to really running the football. They can talk that they're very tough and things like that, but until they show me and get the play calls where they're really going to commit to it and try to run the ball 40 times a game, it's not going to happen.
I'm going to make the executive decision to skip some of these if they are about FSU, as we'll preview FSU later this week. But let's see. Barring injuries, are the offensive line positions now set? This comes from SMU Aussie.
I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be. I think this was a nice performance by the offensive line. I don't think I would go tweak this group anymore. I think you're going to have to let these guys settle in at some point, and I think this is a good spot in the season to be able to do that. Now, your backups, your Ben Sparks, Andrew Chamblee, they're going to need to play every position, as is Justin Osborne. He's going to need to still take reps at center during practice in case Ja'Kai goes down and can't go. So during practice, it's not one of those deals where, hey, you're only going to get reps at left guard today, because we need guys to be able to be flexible for injuries. But if nothing that happens, then I think we'll be fine, but knock on wood.
Stangs 2018, as someone who played for Sonny and saw multiple outbursts, the 2019 TCU helmet throw comes to mind. How does that impact the team? I'm sure it fires a team up, but I feel like at some point there's diminishing returns.
I actually didn't see the helmet throw in 2019. Bo Morris was talking about it on the sideline, and I didn't even see Sonny Dykes going crazy over it until we pulled the film up. And we were on the 35 going in, and we threw an incompletion to James Prochet in the end zone. And at the very end of the clip, you just see the helmet rolling into the end zone, which is a classic film study clip. But I think it's something that can fire up a team. I don't think it was the right time for this past week. I think it was definitely a diminishing return with how your team was performing up to that point, and we'll see. I know Sonny is very intense, and he just wants to win that badly. But as the adult in the room, he needs to be a little more under controlled in that situation.
Yeah, Bill Armstrong had a couple other things to say about that, but that's on the Walking Strong pod. Peruna Cox 22. What impact does a win like this do for recruiting? When you were being recruited, would you hear from teammates or yourself mention rivalry wins like these be a difference maker in their decision?
For sure. If you're committed to a school and another guy at your high school is committed to the rival, you're going to talk about the game. You're going to talk smack like you were on the team this past week. So it definitely is something that could be a difference maker in their decision. If we had a bunch of recruits there on the Hilltop this weekend, which was unreal. And let's be real. A lot of these Dallas recruits are probably thinking one or the other. So when we go out and we're able to kick their ass that way, it's like when Miami kicked Florida's ass. They were talking to all the recruits, don't come here, come to Miami instead. And we'll see if any fruit comes from it.
Mr. Miyagi, who would win in a tug of war, 2021 or this year's offensive line group?
I saw this question yesterday, and I've kind of been thinking about it, honestly. I think 2021's group, while we had some talent and we had some great players, Jalen Thomas played next to me for the better part of 3 years. He's still in the National Football League. I'm a big fan of all the guys in that room. That was a really fun and special group to be a part of. I really like this year's offensive line group. I'll have to wave the white flag on that one. I think this group is a lot more athletically gifted than we were in 2021, but I think our training was just different. I think we were more built to squat a house when this year's group is a little more well-rounded. So I think 2021 is probably the better unit, or I think this year's group is the better unit, but 2021's might be stronger. So we'll call it a draw.
Yeah, got a politician on our hands here. Comet 777. As someone who truly knows Sonny, do you think the rumors of him wanting to get kicked out of the game are true?
As a sportsman, I wouldn't see that he would want to get kicked out of the game. I've heard people say that, he was trying to get kicked out of the game and all that. I think he frankly just took it too far, and the frustrations of last season paired with how this season has gone so far are starting to creep into that staff's mind. And I think there's a little bit of pressure on that staff now. I think the seat is getting pretty hot that they're sitting on.
Second question, what was your favorite play of the game against TCU? For me, it was when KJ got that first touchdown pass. It solidified the passing game, reestablished the breathing room. It was a clutch throw.
I would say the gap scheme to Brashard Smith, 25-yard rushing touchdown where he blows the kiss to the TCU section. That was my play of the game.
And also, that was just after Ja'Kai Clark got hurt and Justin Osborne went to center. So shout out to those guys for staying focused and getting their job done. Pony Hawk, when everything the coach was saying was working during camp isn't working after 4 games, what's the play? Double down or start over?
I think they're going to have to reestablish their identity. I'm sure you're talking about TCU here, as the joke is that they're having a great practice every Tuesday.
So good.
I think you're just going to have to start over, unfortunately. You really don't know what the identity of that team is. That team has played some close ball games where they've won against Stanford on the road in week 1. We know how hard that is, winning week 1. And then they also blew a huge lead against UCF and then just got outplayed and out-physicaled in every aspect by us this past week. I think it's something that while they don't have a bye week to fix it, they don't know what to expect on Saturday when they go play Kansas on ESPN Plus, which is hilarious, by the way, after they trolled us playing on the CW. So TCU is going to have to start over, but I don't know if they have time to do that. My official prediction for what they're going to do this year, I think they're probably going to go 4-8.
Be as critical as you could possibly be. What did SMU not do well / need to improve on the most ahead of Florida State? I guess that's one that could be for next pod if you wanted to, but I just read it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think something that we can do better is I think we're just going to have to throw for more yards at some point this season. Yes, yards aren't everything. Yes, we're going to be able to win games by running the ball, but eventually you're going to play a group that is, say, hell or high water, we're going to stop the run. And you're going to have to be able to sling the rock a little bit and air it out. And we're going to need some performances that we haven't seen so far from our receiving group and from Kevin really completing the deep ball. But there's a reason they call it midseason form. If you get 1% better every day from the start of training camp, there's probably 120 days in a season. You'll be more than double the player you were at the start of training camp. That's where the get 1% better comes from. That's a Chad Morris thing. I've taken it with me everywhere I've gone. And it's just something that during practice, if I have 6 things that I'm going to improve on, I'm never going to be able to get them all done in one practice. So I'm going to take one thing out and say, hey, this past game, my right hip was opening too soon. So in all of my pass sets, I don't care what my hands do. I don't care what my upper body does. That right hip is going to stay closed. And it takes 21 times in a row to make a habit. And so you just start building those habits one day at a time.
Next question. Do you think SMU buys out next year's game in Fort Worth to ensure we keep the Iron Skillet?
Controversial take. I hope we do. Honestly, I think it would force TCU to reschedule us and keep this rivalry going. I would be ecstatic if we bought out the rivalry and didn't go back to Fort Worth next year as an extra special screw you guys. We have the Skillet forever unless you reschedule us, which I think the game will end up getting rescheduled once a different regime takes over, but I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, I actually like that point. I've been saying that they're going to play it no matter what, just because, and I haven't asked anybody. This is just more of a read, but I've said they're going to play it no matter what because Rhett was saying, we play anybody, anywhere, anytime, whatever. But man, I kind of live for pettiness sometimes, and that would be great. There will be some more news this fall, I think, on some other out-of-conference games. If SMU did buy it out, Ole Miss has an opening next fall. Just saying.
Yes, sir.
Love to see that matchup get scheduled. All right. So Skelter asks, we'd love to hear Hayden's analysis explanation on Brashard Smith's 25-yard touchdown run. Everybody has their own explanation, but probably nobody short of the SMU staff will have a take as well informed as Hayden's. So would like to hear his take as to various factors that contributed or did not contribute to the success of the play, including pre-snap reads by Kevin Jennings, bad defensive call alignment by TCU, good blocking by the O-line, good decision by Brashard of picking his hole, whatever else the casual fan who doesn't understand everything about our offense would miss. I look forward to what Hayden has to say each week, even more so than whatever might pop out of Armstrong's mouth each week. Sorry, Bill, which says a lot about what Hayden brings to the site. Great content. Keep it up.
We need to get a joint pod where we bring Walking Strong together with this one. We need to just have a one time all three of us sit down and chop it up. But I would have to get the film in front of me. I can only see it on the TV copy, and I haven't watched it the 15 times that it would take to break all of that down. I think it's a combination of the fact that TCU didn't load the box the way that, frankly, they should have on Saturday. I think it was a good play call. I think Brashard followed his blockers and was able to cut it up at the right moment. And I just think it's one of those things where when you wear down a team by running the ball as much as you do, eventually one is going to pop and you're going to be off to the races, where we could have been on the one coming out and that play would have scored.
FW Silver asks, and you might ignore part of this, but I'm going to just ask it anyway. Is Sonny as big of an ass as he appears? What is his deep-seated hatred for SMU? Canceling the rivalry. Seems smug when talking about them, etc.
I'm going to ignore part of that. I mean, this is the same guy who grew up loving SMU, and that's what he said when he was here. And I did believe it at the time. I went to Sonny's home on Thanksgiving. I don't hate Sonny as a person like I talked about on last week's episode. I think it's BS that they're canceling the rivalry, and I also said that last week. When you're the head coach at wherever it is, let's say for fun, I was the head coach at University of Texas. You would have to come across that you hate Texas A&M or your fans would hate you. So it might be a little bit of show business type thing. I don't know if he actually has all these awful memories of SMU. I mean, he won a lot of games here, so he can't have that bad of memories. But I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where he's probably a combination of putting on an act paired with how we've treated him when he's come back. I mean, frankly, rightfully so. I mean, I've never seen a stadium so against one person as when he got kicked out on Saturday, and it's pretty fun to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, it was both SMU and TCU fans by that point too. It's a little broad and not a pressing topic, but we can tackle it right now. Would love to hear what the schedule demands are for college football students.
This is a great question. The schedule and demands for a college football student. So we'll start at the beginning of the day. So my in-season schedule was I would wake up at, we'll call it 5:30, because most days I would have to be at the facility at, man, I'm actually thinking about an off day. So during season, I would be waking up at 5. And I would get to the facility at 5:30. I'd eat breakfast. I would go down to the meeting room because we would meet before the team met at 6:15. So the offensive line would watch film for an extra 30 minutes. We would have our team meeting at 6:45. That would be 10 or 15 minutes. We would go back into the offensive line room and get ready for practice for the day, talk about the certain things we're putting in, our wrinkles, continue watching the film from the day prior because you don't get to come back in the afternoon. Everybody's got class. You go out on the practice field. You're on the field by like 8:15, I believe is what it was, which is a few years ago. So it is getting a little hazy. You practice 8:15 to 10:15 roughly. You would get your post-practice work in, whether that was, hey, I want to keep continuing on closing that right hip, like I mentioned to a few questions ago, or, hey, I really want to work on striking my hands, or, hey, my covered gap scheme combos I need to get better at, things like that. You would head in, shower up, cold tub, treatment, whatever. Lunch would open at like 11. You would go to lunch 11 to 12, do whatever you need to do. Take off for class. Some guys had class at 11. So some guys would have to leave practice, a few minutes early to make sure that they made it on time. You go to class in the afternoon, which if you were in grad school, your classes are all at night, which really buys time in the middle of the day for you to get better and continue watching film, get extra treatment. But if you're an undergrad, chances are you're probably having class from the time you get out until, nighttime if you have night classes. And you're going to have to find a way to figure out when I'm going to watch film, when I'm going to get extra treatment, when I'm going to take care of my body, whether that's massages, cold tubs, etc. I mean, it is a full load. There were days where I would leave my apartment at 5, 10, and I wouldn't walk in the door until 10 o'clock at night when I was in grad school, and I would, have grad classes until 9:30 at night. It was just one of those deals where if you want to win, it's a full-time job. And it's the same way in the National Football League. You're there pretty much all day because you're just trying to win on Saturday. You're trying to be the best player you can possibly be. But in college, you have the extra load of, I got to go to class on top of all this and still make great grades and be eligible and, get a degree. So it's a lot.
Yeah, I tell you, June Jones had a starting practice at 6 a.m. and then we'd be done around 8. And I think we would meet around 3:30 again. So, by the way, for those that know June, plenty of time to fit in a round of 18 holes as well. But anyway, that's another story. Love June. Hilltop 69. What are some areas of improvement for Kevin?
The deep ball. I mean, it's just something that will take a lot of reps during practice. And knowing Coach Lashley, he has those plays built into every script where he gives Kevin the opportunity and live reps to complete them and build some confidence. And they're working it in center quarterback exchange. They're working it in 7-on-7. I mean, he's getting reps to be able to build it.
Why is TCU's run defense so bad, and why weren't they stacking the box on every down?
You said it. You answered the question. They're not stacking the box. They're leaving 4 or 5 guys in the box, and we get hats on hats. We're getting to the safety before running backs get in touch. So we're getting 6 yards before we're even getting a guy hitting the running back. So it's one of those deals where you really have to commit to it. And in the current era of college football where teams are airing it out all the time, I think that's dwindling a little bit as we move into a new league and are having to run the ball more. But it's just one of those things that it's a very fine balance. I do not want to be a defensive coordinator. I don't envy those guys at all. It is a really tough job.
Yeah, the last question is how long did it take me to write or how much epic was consumed writing the TCU commit story? Actually, I kind of ripped that one from a couple other sites. After some big rivalry wins, they wrote about the commits that the staff would or could or should go after. So I can't take credit for that idea, but it was a good one nonetheless. I feel like people enjoyed it. So that is our mailbag time for today. So Hayden, anything else left to share before we'll preview FSU on the next pod and maybe have a little special guest?
Yeah, a little special guest. Be sure to tune in next time. It's a guy that I'm close with, the guy that I played with. He's another offensive lineman, so you'll have to figure it out from there. But will be a really fun time on the next pod. And just again, super happy to be an alum of this school, to still be involved with SMU, having a great time this season, and can't wait to continue covering the Mustangs. But once we wake up tomorrow, TCU's over. TCU's in the bag, and we'll be on to Florida State.
Yeah, next time we'll talk about it in the off season. That's that we're on to each game from there, right? But man, how sweet it is. Battle for the Iron Skillet stays in Dallas now for the foreseeable future. Maybe we'll find out. But 66-42 SMU is the victor in this one. For Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. We're closing out this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast with one quick reminder. Subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for 50% off annual subscriptions using code PONYUP. So check us out. Hayden's on there hanging out. I'm on there hanging out. We've got recruiting intel, team scoop, and much, much more as the Mustangs not only are getting into the ACC schedule for football, but basketball has started practice as well. So jump on board for a full year at 50% off with code PONYUP. So for Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.
Later.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.